Hello everybody, my name is David and today we're going to look at what is the basic structure of HTML code, what are the starting blocks, the starting points to learn HTML. Before we go any further, allow me to present myself. My name is David. I've worked for 15 years in the video game industry. For me, coding is a game of logic, a game of exploration, and a game of construction. And it's my passion to share this joy. So let's dive right in. We're going to go over really the basics. What is an HTML tag? What is the structure of an HTML document? How do we display text? How do we display images? How do we structure our document with blocks? And then we'll start looking at what is Bootstrap, which will allow us to apply styles and layout for our page without going into CSS. CSS means cascading style sheets. It's how we can define styles and layout on our page. It's beyond the scope of this video, so we'll be letting Bootstrap doing the heavy lifting in this video. What is an HTML tag? An HTML tag is basically the name of the tag contained within the two signs, inferior superior signs, and the tags contain content, or if they don't, they can be self-closing tags, like a line break, for example, can be a self-closing tag. There are a wide number of tags, each with a different function or a different role. We'll go through some of them today. We won't be able to cover all of them because there are so many. A lot of them are not always all that useful. Tags can contain text and they can contain other tags. A tag is basically, it's like a box. You can put other boxes inside. You need to close the boxes that are inside before you close the outside box. Tags also have attributes. These attributes are based all along the same structure. There's the name of the attribute, and that's equal to the value of the attribute between quotes. One point of caution: an ID should not appear twice on the same page, because it's used by the navigator to refer to specific elements within the document. So it's kind of the name, so it allows us to say go to this place or edit this kind of tag, so it's a unique identifier. What is the main structure of an HTML doc? We have a first line, which is the doc type, which allows the navigator to know what kind of document it's reading. And then we have the document itself, which is basically an HTML block within which there's a head block and a body block. So first, what's in the head? In the head, we have all the data that is meant to be read by the browser or the search engine, but not to be displayed directly to the user. So that can contain stuff like the title, which is on top of the navigator window, on the bar, not within the document itself. There's all the metadata, which is used to define what is shown when the page is shared on, like, social media, for example. It also contains styles, which can be of two sorts. We can have style, which is actually defined directly inside the document, or we can link to an external style sheet, which will contain styles that can be shared between different web pages. In the body, we basically have the text that is meant to be shown to the user and the blocks and the structure. So it's all the content that is meant to be shown to the user. We also define scripts inside the body. One word, one detail, slightly more than a detail, but one preferred method of doing things is to put the script at the end, just before the body closing tag. This allows us to ensure that all the content is loaded, and so that any script that refers to parts of the content can do so without worrying whether that content exists already in the browser memory. In terms of text, there's two types of blocks that contain text, two types of tags that contain text. There's the header text tags, which go H1, H2, H3, H4, and so on. It's important to ensure that only one H1 is on the page to help search engines know what is the important title for the page. And then there's the paragraph P tag, which just defines a basic paragraph of text. We also have tags which allow us to define text which we want to highlight. Typically there's two which are used a lot, which is strong, which sets the text as bold, but also indicates to the search engines that this text is important, and EM, which means emphasis, which tends, depending on the style, to have the text as italics. It's important not to put these tags, in particular in the H, the header tags, because that's seen as kind of trying too hard. It's called keyword stuffing. So don't put these in any H tags. So the 2 points of caution: only one H1 in the page, and make sure the header, the H2, appears after the H1, and that the first H3 appears after the first H2, and so on. And no EM or strong, and ideally no bold or no B or I tags in the H tags. Displaying an image is really simple. You have the IMG tag, and you refer to the source of the image using src. src equals, and you go in where the image is hosted. It can either be an absolute path, like we have here, or a relative path where we would just have the slash random, for example, which is relative to the current document. And images can also be set within a block as the background of the block, but that's using styling, and that's, like I said, beyond the scope of this video. The basic building block for a web page is a div, a division. These are the generic containers of HTML. As I mentioned earlier, the styling of these divs, of these divisions, is done with CSS, and that's what allows us to position the divisions on the divs on the page relative to each other and based on what the screen size is. So it allows us to control how these divisions are positioned on the page. This positioning gives the structure of the page, how it's displayed to the end user. And to help search engines and browsers understand the page, we can attach a specific role to certain divisions. So we have tags which define not only a visual structure but also a navigation structure. What is the structure of the page? So we can have a blog which has the header tag, which will then be the header. We can have a blog which has the footer tag, which will then be the footer, and sections and articles. The nav tag is the one that contains the main navigation links for the page. So this allows search engines to understand the structure of your page, and it also allows specific browsers to have a better understanding of how your page is built. Some browsers are destined to be used for people, for example, who can't see, who have sight impairments, and if the navigator wants to be able to read and know which is the best block to read from initially, for example, this gives the navigator better information in that regard. Now, regarding Bootstrap, we've talked about styling, and Bootstrap is probably the easiest way to do that at the moment. At least it's the easiest way when you're learning. It's not my favorite framework. It does make things kind of easy to understand initially. It's one of the most popular CSS frameworks. It's made by Twitter. It was released initially in 2011, and they've continued to improve it. And they've just released, at the time of recording this video, the beta version of the version 5 of the Bootstrap framework. To see how to use it, I recommend you actually go to the link that I have shown on the somewhere here. The reason I give a link and don't state specific instructions is because as it's in beta, things are moving fairly fast, and there are new versions being released and new ways of the link to the version is kind of continually changing. So I'd recommend you go to the website and make sure you have the up-to-date information, because the information today might not be up to date next week. The basic principle of Bootstrap and any good CSS framework really is it's built on a mobile first principle. That is, we define general rules and then exceptions for larger screen sizes. That is to say, for example, if we want to have an element which is visible only on larger screens, what we'll do is we say you don't display none, d none, and then except for screens that are this size and above, you can display. And this is done using what's called breakpoints, which are screen sizes where we say, okay, from this size onwards do this. So there are a number of breakpoints: SM for small, MD for medium, LG, XL, and now in Bootstrap 5 there's XXL, which you can set as different sizes, and it will allow us to say, okay, from say tablet screen size and above, this is what happens. On a laptop screen and above, this is what happens. On a big screen and above, this is what happens. And this allows us to structure the page responsively. So we have a nice experience on all screen sizes. Bootstrap uses a 12 grid, and the reason why there is this 12 grid is that 12 can be divided by 1, by 2, by 3, by 4, by 6, and by 12. You'll note there's no 5 in there, no 10. But that allows us quite a bit of flexibility to be able to build our web page. And the way this is done is, like I said, a 12-column grid, and then we create a container, and that container can be fluid, which means it really takes the whole screen, or by default it has a fixed width, at least a fixed maximum width. In this container we have rows, which kind of the lines, and we have cols, which are the columns. And the way this is done in practice is we give the container or row or col class to a div or to a section or to another tag. So we have, but basically what you need to know is to build the structure, you need to have a container and you need to have a row. The row kind of does the vertical structure and the cols does the horizontal structure. In terms of how this works, because it's with the 12 grid, if you give the class col12, that will actually end up being a full width column. So it has 100% of the width of the row which is it's in. A col4 will have 33% of the width, a third of the width, and so we can put 3 cols. In 4, you can put 3 4s into 12. That's how it works. A col2 means it's a col that's 2 columns wide, which means you can put 6 in a 12 column. And you can mix and match and say do 8 columns and then 2 and then 2, or 4 and 3 and 3 and 2, or whatever. And that allows us to create the structure on the page. So that's what I'd recommend to look into if you're starting out from scratch and you want to learn how to construct your page, is to start using Bootstrap for the styles, and that will allow us to create the structure of your page. If you want to start learning, the resources I'd recommend is basically the two on either side are kind of encyclopedic websites. which allow you to, if you have a question specific tag on what it does and what the attributes are that are assigned to this tag that are useful for this tag, the W3 Schools or the Mozilla Developer Network will have the information. If you want to learn by doing, I'd recommend Free Code Camp, which allows you to, which is, as its name indicates, it's free. It's built on the principle of they introduce a notion, and you start developing with it, and it says it has automatic tests which tell you, yes, this corresponds to what you've learnt, and we keep adding on. This allows you to learn progressively as you're building your knowledge base. Right, that's it for now from me. If you had fun, if you learned anything, if you found value in this video, please subscribe, sign up for notifications, please like the video. If you have any questions, if you have any suggestions, if you have any ideas for future content that you'd like to hear from me, please leave them in the comments. And it was fun speaking to you. I hope to see you soon. Bye.